It had been a long car ride. Katie had already rolled her socks up and down 13 times. Orbie had counted the spots on his feet twice. And they both discovered that the map to the museum had lots of wiggly lines on it. Mom was a wizard to follow the right lines, and they were there at last. Katie and Orbie had never seen anything like the huge museum building. There were flags and colored banners all around it. There were pointy things in the corners of the roof. And it was made of huge blocks. Dad said the blocks were stone, and Orbie made a "I've never seen anything like it" noise. Katie's eyes were wide as she pointed at the stone faces, the birds and lion-y things that looked down at them from over the incredibly big double doors. Orbie was just a tiny bit frightened. He and Katie wondered what kind of things they would see inside. Dad said they would see all kinds of animals. Orbie thought he'd wait outside, but with an "in we go," Dad opened the door. Orbie took a big breath and went inside. Inside were all kinds of exciting things to look at. Orbie began to get a little dizzy from looking everywhere at once. Mom told him he didn't have to see everything on the first visit. Orbie started to notice there were birds and foxes and pictures of animals. On one wall there was an enormous fossil of a dinosaur. Dad explained that fossils were pieces of rock with impressions of animals in them. The fossils looked humongous to Orbie. There was a glass display case like at the department store. These had butterflies, beehives, all kinds of rocks and birds' eggs. Dad said that some of the beige rocks were actually pieces of dinosaur bones and teeth. Orbie kind of hoped that he could keep his teeth right where they were. They walked through the museum, stopping to look at pictures and displays, and Dad read the words to them. They found out that rabbits are cousins of the mouse. They are from the rodent family. Beavers like to build their houses in shallow streams and sometimes flood the farmland by blocking the streams. They also found out that in a country called Australia, there's a bird that likes to eat bees. Orbie thought that was extraordinary. When Katie and Mom were looking at the bee-eater bird, Orbie noticed a great big staircase that led way up to the other floors of the museum. His surprised little squeak said he wanted to know what was upstairs. Mom said she thought the big dinosaur was upstairs somewhere, so they all headed up to see it. Orbie made giggling sounds. Katie looked over the rail. A giggle popped out of her, too, as she looked down. The people on the first floor looked small and funny from up here. They had to stop for a minute on the second floor because there were so many people walking down the stairs. Mom pointed out the meeting place marker under a beautiful flag. If anyone got lost, they would know where to wait. It was just after that that Katie decided she wanted to know what was in the room beside the stairs. She walked around the corner and came face to tummy with a huge growling bear. Katie couldn't help it. A little scream jumped right out of her. Suddenly, Orbie was in front of her, shielding her and honking at the angry bear. Then Dad picked Katie up and Mom scooped up Orbie. "There's nothing to be frightened of, you two," said Dad. "This is a museum, not a zoo." Katie and Orbie thought about that for a second, and then they started to laugh. In fact, neither of them could stop laughing all the way to the next staircase, and on the third floor there were more people. It was a bit crowded, and Katie and Orbie had trouble seeing things. They stayed close to Mom and Dad until Orbie happened to look into a doorway. He was so surprised at what he saw in the other room that he stopped short and let go of Mom's hand. Katie did the same thing. They were in a large room, almost all alone, staring up at the biggest thing they had ever seen. It was taller than 2 giraffes and had a tail even longer than that. Katie walked right underneath the thing and looked way up. She could see high above her the huge head and large teeth. Katie sighed and blinked. And all of a sudden she noticed something funny, and it looked like Orbie. Katie blinked again and realized it was Orbie. He had climbed up on the big leg and now, reaching up through several of the bones, climbed just like he did on the monkey bars at the park. Katie thought for a moment, then said, "Orbie, I think this is a dinosaur, and I'm pretty sure dinosaur bones aren't for climbing." Orbie looked at Katie, and his polka dots turned bluish, as they sometimes do when he feels badly about something, and he just started climbing down. "Katie, Orbie," said a familiar voice fairly softly, "come over here, please." Katie could see Mom and Dad standing beside a man in a blue uniform behind the rope. "Dad, Mom," Katie said excitedly, "look what we found. Is it a dinosaur?" Dad crouched down and took their hands. "Yes, isn't it amazing? That used to be a real dinosaur called a Brachiosaurus. He used to be a living and breathing creature just like we are now." He was glad that Katie and Orbie were so interested, but that it wasn't polite to climb the dinosaur bones. They were very precious and valuable, and you had to treat them carefully, like you would a toy that belonged to someone else. That's why the rope was there, and that's why the security guard was there. Katie said that they were so surprised at the dinosaur that they hadn't really seen the rope. Mom and Dad understood, but still, they should just look at it from where they were. Katie and Orbie turned to the security guard, and Katie said, "We're sorry we went under the rope, sir." Then Orbie made a, "I won't climb any more dinosaur bones" noise. And the security guard smiled at them both and said, "No harm done." He walked away. Then Mom picked up Katie and Dad picked up Orbie so they could see the dinosaur bones without tilting their heads back quite so far. And Dad told them all about the Brachiosaurus. In the car on the way home, Katie and Orbie chatted about the bee-eater, which was entirely too yucky for Katie, and the huge dinosaur. They wanted to know if they could go back to the museum one day. I don't have to tell you that they promised not to climb on anything in the museum ever again. Mom and Dad smiled and said that next month there was going to be a special exhibit of bugs and butterflies, and Katie and Orbie squealed with delight. And do you know what? I think they were both going to have trouble waiting a whole month.
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Caterpillars are kind of funny looking and very ticklish when you hold them. But they are also magical. They can wrap themselves in their own sleeping bag and change into a beautiful butterfly.